So today we have a box with 3 K7000s in it. Sorry I'm up so close, but my camera overhead isn't that far away from the bench, so I don't have to zoom in as far when I need to zoom in. So anyway, sorry about that. But I have a box here with 3 K7000s. 2 of them are for repair. The third one is a parts chassis that I can rob parts from if I need to fix the other 2. So depending on how many parts are missing from that one or the condition of that one, if it doesn't have a lot of parts missing, I may just try and repair all 3 because I have enough parts to, usually get any 1 or 2 K7000s going on hand at any time. I'm out of flybacks. The last flyback I had I used on the previous video to this one, I believe. So I'm out of flybacks. So we may need one, we may not. We'll see. If the ones that are on here are working, I don't like to replace them if they're working unless they're cracked or show signs of needing replacement. But we'll try and get the first 2 repaired, and if we can, we will try and repair the parts one because there's no reason not to repair it if it's at least complete or mostly complete or nothing's too wrong with it. So let's open this up. The other side of the box has the owner's information, so we're opening the bottom side. I'm not going to bother trying to remove the label or anything, so let's open the bottom here. And let's see what we get. Am I off the mark here? There we go. Okay. Looks like 1, 2, 3. Let's grab one here. Well, let's grab the middle one. Easiest to get out probably. And then we'll grab the second one. And then we'll grab the third one. Okay, we got a return label, it looks like, so that's handy. So now we'll set this aside, and I'll just grab the one on top here that I took out last, and the other 2 I'll set aside for separate videos, I guess. Of course, I don't know if this is the parts one. If it is, we'll grab one of the other 2. The tape's a bit unnecessary, but that's no problem. Okay. Oh, look at that. First one out of the box. Donor chassis. You can keep for parts. Oh, that's nice of them. Donor chassis you can keep for parts. Well, that's very nice. Oh, I see why. Okay, flyback's missing. The fuse appears to be blown. If we look here, we can see that yeah, there's a piece missing off the filament. Actually, I don't know if it's blown or not. It looks like it is. We can test and see. Oh, that's good. That's odd. It looks like it's blown, but it's just kind of odd. All right. Well, it looks like the flyback is missing, so we're not going to be able to get this up and running because I don't have any flybacks. But otherwise, it looks complete. Voltage regulator, HOT, all of our resistors. The only thing missing is the flyback. Well, yeah, the bottom seems okay. It's got the mod for the H size. Someone's done some repair to the high heat areas. That's normal. D12 is on the back side of the board for some reason. Don't know why. But see that kind of all the time. Yeah, looks like all that's missing is the flyback. Someone damaged the pad here after taking the old one out. Well, okay. I may save this for a separate video. Somebody has replaced all the pots, and that's nice. I may save this for a separate video. I'll get a flyback and put it in and do some testing, and we'll see if we can bring this one back to life. But for now, we'll have to keep this one as the donor like they want me to. So, well, thank you very much for that. So we'll set this aside and grab one of the other two that we know we need to work on. Okay. Alright, so I guess for now this will just be a two-part series, or this video and the one after this for the other 7000, then I'll fix the donor chassis at a later time once my parts arrive. Again, I'm not a fan of this packing tape. It's kind of unnecessary when you have it in the box, but it just makes it hard to get these things taken apart. But alright, what does this say? Oh, wow, we got a diatribe here. Image would not fit full screen. Tried adjusting control board, hold in H width coil, but continues the same. When adjusting control board, image warps, small tilt. When adjusting H hold, image jumps from side to side with a slight glitch. When adjusting H width coil, image stays the same, does not do anything. Okay, I can almost guarantee it's a C38 problem. Let's set this aside here. Alright. And let's do some inspection. This has been rebuilt. We've got a new flyback and new caps. Looks very clean, looks very well done. Looks like someone did a nice job. Obviously haven't looked at the back yet, but this appears to be a nice clean example of a 7000. And it's got the mod here that moves R69 and R69 and C28. It moves that. It's a mod that for some reason moves it. It usually resides on the board here. You can see this white wire comes off and runs to here. So this is a setup that is normally down here, and you can see here on this one, this is the chassis that usually resides on the picture tube that I use for testing these, and you can see that on this one that they're down here. So I don't know what the logic is behind this mod, but this is a Wells Gardner official mod that relocates these components to over here. Why they do that, I can't tell you, but I think they do that because they have to add this guy. So anyway, I'm not going to worry about that, but that's the story behind that. So let's zoom back out. Very clean. Altogether it looks complete. And somebody was kind enough to move all of my color plots to the center already. How about that? They're pretty much all centered for the most part. Wow, okay. Transistors all seem intact. We want to spread apart our resistors for the RGB so they don't overheat onto each other. And I guess we'll look at that later. It's still zip tied on there. I assume all the colors are working. Let's look at the back side. That's odd. They're on the same trace. We got two component legs touching each other. Not that it's a big problem because they're on the same trace, but where did it go? Right here, right there. They're on the same ground plane, the same ground trace. But it's just kind of odd to see that there, so we'll take care of that. Okay, so we got that. Zoom back out. Anything else we see? They have done some rework here, not too bad, for the area that gets hot. So that resistor that goes across here, from this point to this point, it's this guy here, R101. That resistor there burns up its pad, so they've got all this rework done and this done here, very common. And it's not too bad. There's an inordinate amount of solder on it, a little bit too much solder, but again, shouldn't be a big issue. Looks like we've got some reflow work to do here. reflow across C38. C38 needs some reflow. We got going on here whatever's going on with this. Not sure what's up with that. HOT looks to be completely original because I can tell that no one has ever replaced this HOT. Because if they did, someone's poked in here to do some testing and reading, but I guarantee you that no one's ever changed out the HOT. Well, as far as I can tell, I can't say guarantee, but I don't think they have, because if they did, when they heated this up to loosen the solder, this would have melted. The jacket on the wire would have most assuredly melted, and it has not. I think someone's poked a probe in here to do that, but this is not melted, so I don't think this has ever been changed. There's something going on. There's something going on. Okay, there's something going on with this right here. This looks terrible. This is that same pin we had a problem. No, it was this one. I'm sorry. On the last chassis, it was this one. But this looks pretty terrible, like the pad. They lifted the pad. The pad appears to be gone, and they did some type of thing here. It looks. I would do the same thing. I'll fix it, and I'll do the same thing. But this just looks bad. You can see it's dull and a little bit too much solder there. What else? What else? Everything else seems okay. We've got solder chilling out here that shouldn't be there. That can go away. We've got more butchery kind of stuff going on here with the vertical IC. I don't see any bridges, but definitely some work going on here, so we'll take care of that. But he didn't mention anything about vertical problems. Saying when adjusting control board image warps slightly, H hold, H width, H, yeah, so it doesn't seem to be anything wrong with the vertical. So even though this is going on here, we don't appear to have an issue with the vertical. It looks like somebody removed the entire heatsink. They took the entire heatsink out to change the vertical IC chip or do something to it, because they got this epoxy here, and they've also got what looks like, let's zoom in a bit more, they got whatever's going on with this and whatever's going on with this. So obviously somebody had taken the entire heatsink out. But that appears to be all of what we need to look at. Oh, I saw a couple more things here. We got whatever's going on here. Looks like there was a giant burn mark. It's a giant burn scorched area under here. Let's zoom out a bit. And they used this area of the board burned up, and they had to fix it here. Oh man. And then we've got whatever's going on over here on the voltage regulator. We got a cold solder going on here. Pin 5 does nothing. We got a very tiny little jumper thing going on here. I don't know what's going on, so that's odd. Let me do a little rework here just real quick, and then we'll power it up and see what it's doing, because we got one leg sticking out. We got one leg sticking out compared to the rest of them, so that's very odd. So obviously that's been replaced, and someone forgot to cut that one off of there. Alright, so let me turn my fume extractor thing here. Set those aside. And I want to fix this here real quick. $630, $650, $680. Let's. All right, that should be good. It looks like all the pads, all 5 pads, are gone on this. So that's why this was done. Well, that's a little better. At least it's not, they're not dull anymore. And pin 5 definitely isn't touching anything. Pin 5 is a dead contact on this, on all these. Yep, nothing. Okay, I guess we can go ahead and make sure it's good while we're here. 3 and 4. Yep, 3 and 4 is good. If we look here, we got our 150 ohms on the meter. And then if we go to, well, that's actually diode checker. If we go to ohms, we should get 180 ohms because we're reading across the B plus resistor over there. Perfect. So our voltage regulator should be good. We know it powers up, so I'm not worried about checking the other components. But let's do a little bit more rework here. Let's fix our, let's fix our resistor, our flyback pad here. I'm going to take some of this off. Just to get a look at what we're dealing with here. Okay, so they got a wire wrapped around it. I see. Well, I mean, I guess that'll work. A little bit overkill on the solder though. I mean, that's at least better. Okay, well that should work. Is there anything else I want to look at? Looks like someone's replaced Q10, it looks like, for some reason. Never had to replace one of those before, but you can see that they damaged that pad as well and moved that over. We can test it. Oop, wrong way. We can test it here. Okay, let's go to this side. There we go. So it goes to one side, nothing on the other? That doesn't seem right. Let's see how this one's supposed to read. See that? Something's not right there, because this one, I don't know which one's the base. One side's going to be the base. Let's just try this side. See, that's odd. Let's try this side. Okay, so on this one, these two, was I not reading that right? What's going on here? Let's just go over here. So that's definitely not the base. What if we go over to this side? Well, six. Well, either way, okay. So we got. Let's do this again here. We'll use the middle as the base. If we go to, there we go. Okay, we got 0.6 on the left and 1.2 on the right. If we do the same on this one, we got 0.6 to the left, 1.2 to the right. Okay, so that's good. Okay. That just was kind of odd there. Well, I guess what we can do is hook this up. I want to hook it up and see what it's doing. That way, if we fix it, we know that we've got it tackled. But one last thing I want to check here is reflowing some of this here, because I don't know what is going on here with this blob. I see their leg was too short here, so let's use gravity. Can we get it to work? Nope. We may have to put a jumper across here because it's too short to reach where it needs to go. Yeah, it's not going to work. Am I doing this for nothing here? Let's... Okay. Yeah. That's working. Why am I even bothering with that? So that's still intact there. Yeah, that's fine. Okay. How is that supposed to... Okay, so that should be a continuous loop here, and it's not. Alright. This is pretty bad. Pretty bad. I'll have to go through and probably clean all this up. There's too much solder on a lot of this. He says as he adds more. Alright, well, I think we'll just go ahead and try it the way that it is and see if we can duplicate the discrepancy. It's kind of always step number one. And then we will try and go from there. So let me get this on a picture tube and we'll get it set up, ready to go, and see what we get. But let's reflow. Our C38 legs did not look very good. So a lot of times when you have width issues like this that they're describing, it's not necessarily... The C38 is like any other cap, even though it's a poly cap. Even though it's a poly cap and not a electrolytic or axial or whatever, you know, metal film cap, however you want to call it, or whatever type that you're looking at. It's like any other cap. Over time, it's just like any electronic item, it'll start failing. So it may not be shorted or technically bad, but over time it'll begin failing, and that can cause your image to start folding over on itself or not as wide as it used to be. So sometimes just replacing C38 will get you up and going, and that's all you have to do. So let's first see what is happening, and then we'll see what's going on with C38. And before we do that, where did my stupid... There it is. I just want to see what it reads here. If it's 1.1, if it's in the mega ohms or if it's open. Because if we go to ohms, it should be open. If we wait long enough. Yeah, 30K is kind of an odd reading. If I recall, it should just be an open reading. If we do the same thing on this one, well, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm thinking continuity mode. That's it. Okay, the continuity mode is what I'm thinking of. Continuity mode, it should just be open like that. Nothing. See, there's... Yeah, okay, that's what I'm thinking of. Sorry about that. Let's go back to this and see if it just reads open. Yeah, okay. Alright, well, so C38 electrically seems okay. So let's get it on picture 2, turn it on, see what we get. Alright, so we're all hooked up, ready to go. I'm using my NBA Jam board here instead of my test pattern generator because I want to just see what kind of image we have under a normal circumstance. So let's make sure we don't short anything out on that. Let's just set this here like that. Okay. Alright, we got anode, neck, yoke, ground, video, and power, and I think we're ready. So let's turn it on. A, make sure it turns on. B, what kind of image we get. So let's see. Oh, nice loud high voltage. Wow, looks good. Oh, we got 50-60 hertz issue here. The bottom is squished because of 50-60 hertz. We'll have to fix that. I don't see really anything that he's talking about just yet. I hope he doesn't have a bad yoke or tube of some kind. Let's go ahead and escape out of here. Of course, the colors and stuff are not adjusted. Let's go to the test menu. Let's go down to monitor patterns. That's not what I want. Monitor patterns. Crosshatch. Okay, so we should have a green block at the bottom just like this one. You can see this green block is a bit squished, so we'll adjust our 50-60 hertz. There we go. So now we need to do vertical size, bring it down, vertical position. There you go, H position. I don't have any issue with H position. It kind of squishes over on itself on the side, but I think this is all going to come down to be just a bad C38. So let's find out here. So we have a nice perfect square image right now. It's glorious. We're equidistant on both sides. So let's try and adjust. Let's do our black level. Turn it up, that's better. Now we can see our crosshatch better. So we have a perfect square image. It's just not quite filled on the sides. So if we do our vertical size to where our red goes right off screen. Let's see, position. Right there. So our red is at the edge of the screen on the bottom, edge of the screen on the top. We have about an inch or so on each side. So we'll grab our plastic adjustment tool. Always use a plastic one. Never use an actual metal Allen key. You'll damage your graphite inside the coil. And it looks like it's already, if we look at it, it's already basically, oh, let's just go this way. Sorry about that. It's already basically out all the way. And going, let's see, up makes it wider and down makes it narrower. So we're not going to gain much on that. So I think what we'll do is we'll just replace our C38 real quick and come back and see how it fares. Then we'll kind of go from there. But I'll try and turn the coil and you can watch it get shorter. Well, it's getting wider. It got wider. It got wider by about that much. That's not getting any wider. So if we go back down with it, yeah, it's creeping in. Both sides creeping in. So yeah, that was the limit. Right about here is the limit of the width. So we'll change out C38, and I'll bet you dollars to donuts that it fixes our problem. If it doesn't, I think I have another idea. So let's see what C38 replacing does first, and we'll see if it needs more after that. So stand by one moment. So let's go through the stash here and see if we can find the correct cap. I know I've got some other ones in here. There we go. I think that's everything there. We'll set this aside. Alright, so we're looking for a 200 volt or 250 volt 394. So if we dump this out here, 274, 630. If you see one here it says 630 volt, I would recommend against using those. Let's see, 224, 630. I wouldn't use those. I'd look for the ones that have the 200 volt here. 250 volt, 250 volt, 274. So putting this in here would make the image extra wide. The lower the number, the lower the farad rating, the wider the image is. So 270. If this is a 394 that's in here, and we put a 274 in place, it's going to make it wider for sure. But I want to try replacing it with the correct original rating first. So we're looking for a I think it's 364, 394. That's a 630. We don't want that. Let's see, 474, 250. That's going to make it even narrower. We don't want that. Let's try this one. 224. I may have already used it. 564. We definitely don't want that one. Here we go. Right there. Perfect. 330. We'll try this one. Can we focus here? 334. 250 volt. I don't even know if you can tell. So we'll put this one in there, see what we get. Let's put all these away now. Here's the one we're going to use. Okay, set these aside and take this one out. Out she is, and yep, 3.39. So I was thinking 394, but yeah, 39, 390, 394. So this is an original 100%, no doubt, C38. And like I say, they can fail, so we will test this first. What the heck is going on here? Can't say I've ever seen that before on the remote harness. So we'll take our legs and bend them out, and it should sit right in there, just like that. First, we need to dab a little of the solder away. A little dab will do ya. Let's get this in here. Just like that. Okay. There we have it. New C38 installed, and let's turn it back on and see if it's any better. Alright, so I realized while hooking this up for the second time that I forgot my cardinal rule of tying off the wires for the remote harness, so they put a strain relief here and not back and forth on the wires while I'm working on it. So I forgot about that. Wanted to point that out. But we're all hooked back up again. We got our anode neck, yoke, ground, and video. Anode neck, yoke, ground, video, and power. So we are ready to go again, and let's see if that made any difference. You can see the new C38 still sitting right there, and the old one is right here in me hand. So let us see if that did any better. So let me put this here, turn this on, and see what we get. And this has nice high voltage. Well, not really that much better. I may have to go even further down. but it looks fantastic. The image is fantastic. It does indeed not have enough width anymore. Or it still is kind of the same thing. So it's still definitely a C38. Yep, you can see that the black level is too high. Our brightness is too high. And based off of that, you can see that, yep, we've got that. By the way, that's how you can tell your black level is too high. If you can see this here, the raster, it's too high. If we turn our black level down to right there, and not even that, a little bit more. There you go. Right there is where you want your black level to be. Any higher, if you can see the edge of the line like that, your black, even right there, that black level is too high. It needs to be roughly right there. So even with that, we still have a fantastic image. It looks great. But we didn't really improve our situation one bit. We've still got the inch or so of black on the right and left. It's not quite centered, but there we go. About 3/4 inch on the right, 3/4 inch on the left. So we didn't actually increase our size one bit. So let's go even further down to the 220. I think the 224. Let's go down to the 220 rated cap and see if that makes any difference. Let's see if we can find that 220 again. Alright, what was this one that's already been in? What was this one? There's that 394 I was looking for. There's that 394. So this one would be a direct replacement for this one. You can see this one says 0.39. This is actually like 390. If we look at this one, you can see 394. So 250 volt. And this one was 200 volts. So this one here would be a direct replacement for this one. And we put a 324 in, so we need to go even lower. So let's go down to, here's another 394. I actually have two of them. So that's good to know. Well, combined with my other stash here. So let's see if we can find a 224. There's a 334. This is the 334 that we installed out of the other bag, I think. There's a 104. We don't want to try a 104. This tiny guy is a 104. 474, 154. We might have to try a 154. So I'll set this aside just in case. 224 right there. I don't know if you can see it. Let's try it closer. 224, 250 volt. I can't tell if that's coming through on the camera, but 224. So we'll put that in there and see if that makes it. It should make a difference because this will allow it to go wider. Okay, since we basically replaced the original one with one that was very close to the original rating, putting in a 224, again lower makes it go wider, should be good. So actually, you know what? Let me set aside this 104 just in case we need to use it. I've never had to go down that far with it, but we got our 224 here. Let's take our was this 334 I think it was? Yeah, 334. This was a 334. So we're taking out 334 and putting in a 224. So that should get us going. Take care of this problem. I don't know why the replacement doesn't make it work, but you know, who knows? There could be any number of other factors. It could be a width coil problem, I can't say. But for the most part, just to make our troubleshooting easier, we're just going to go down in tolerance on the C38, and this will most likely fix the problem. Where are we here? Here we are. Let's go like this. Open that guy up. Bend our legs again. Just like that. Stick this guy in there. And we'll see what happens. All right. Need new cutters. So there we have it. Take number 2, I guess, but technically 3 since we're powering it up for the 3rd time. But let's see how that turns out. One moment. Alright, we are set to go. We got the new C38 in there, the 224 I believe it was. And we're all hooked up, anode, neck, yoke, ground, video, and power. Always repeat those to yourself. I always repeat those to myself, even though it sounds like a broken record, because that way, if you get in the habit of doing that, you won't forget to accidentally hook up the anode cup. I know people turn it on, they turn on their monitor after putting the chassis back in, forget to hook up the anode cup, and kabooey. So get in the habit of repeating to yourself, anode, neck, yoke, ground, video, power, and you will not forget to hook something up and possibly damage the chassis you just repaired. So with that being said, let's turn this on again. And that's nice to hear. Okay, let's see what we get. There we go! Alright. As you can see, now we have full width. Let me zoom in just a bit. There we go. Look at that. Perfect. We'll kick off to the menu. Oh yeah. Monitor patterns, crosshatch. There you go. Now if we go H position. Oh, what's going on? Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. We got a linearity problem. The right side is squished. We go right there. Okay. Now vertical position. Vertical size. Alright, so now we have a full square image. And you can see that the red block is now very top. Oh, well, hold on. There we go. Okay, so vertical. We got the red block on the top, red block on the bottom, just along the very edge, red block on the right, and you can barely see the red block on the left if we just do this a little bit. There we go. So now we have a nice square image, but if you look at the right side, it's squished a little bit. Actually, both sides are a little squished. Now let's actually see. Let's look at what the game looks like, though, because I don't want to get too crazy with this. Yeah, it's kind of squished a bit on the right. Oh yeah. Let's bring our size down and our H position. Yeah, as I move it to the right, you can watch the insert coin up here. You can see up there in the corner, watch that. As I move it to the right, it gets squished. It doesn't necessarily happen over here on the left. The left corner is actually kind of fine. It's just that right side that's being squished. So now we have fixed our issue of the width being too wide. Let me actually see if I can H position this to where it's right there is equidistant. Oop. Right there is pretty equidistant where it needs to be. And let me adjust our H. It's actually not that bad. If you look at it compared to Player 3, it's not that bad, but it's absolutely squished. So let me see if adjusting H size will fix that. because we are kind of at the max here. Let's go back to the gameplay. Going in, going in. Okay, right there. Right there is, we have just a little bit of black on the left. And if we do H position. Okay, so right there is about absolutely the edge of the screen on the right and the absolute edge of the screen on the left without showing any black. So right there is the perfect adjustment for our H size. And if we go out here and look, we still have a squished image compared to the player 3. So I think now that we've got our issue solved with the width, I think I know what will fix the problem with our squished image on the right. And let me detail that here. We'll get this all turned off back on the bench, and I'll go through what I think will fix that problem. So stand by one moment. All right, let's talk about my theory here. Is that on a lot of these later revision 1990 boards, you can see here it says 1990. There was an 86 version that ran from 86 to 90, and then in 90 they made some changes and released a 1990 version. And you can see that this other one here that I showed earlier actually says 1986 right there. So this is a later version from 1990, and a lot of these older versions have a capacitor across the horizontal side of the circuit. You can see there's no cap here. So a lot of times there's a capacitor like this. It's a 1600 volt or 1.6 kilovolt, 0.0062 microfarad. So what you do is you put it in series, or in parallel, I'm sorry, you put it in parallel across D18. So if you were to imagine that this capacitor was installed here across D18, it goes like this, from one leg of D18 to this coil here. So right across in parallel with D18, we got to put this capacitor in there. And I'll bet you, after doing that, that will fix this squished image problem. Now I've actually got a K7000A, a Zenith K7000A, and you'll notice there's that capacitor. It's right across D18. On this particular type, D18 is actually mounted in here vertically instead of flat across the board, but they've got that capacitor in place. So a lot of these do that. So not everyone has it, because this one doesn't. This one doesn't. However, it's the 86 version. So, you know, if you have an issue with your width where it's not wide enough, C38 going to a lower rating will almost always fix that problem. But I'll bet what happens now, I bet that if I put this in here, my image is going to be too wide, way too wide. I won't be able to adjust it. And I'll bet what's going to end up happening is I'll probably have to put this capacitor back in combination with this one across D18. I'll bet that's what we're going to end up having to do. But first, what I'll do is, since we know our image is now wide and we can adjust it and go past and shrink it, and the width is actually the way it's supposed to be, I am going to put this capacitor in parallel with D18 here. You can see D18 is this little guy right here in front of C38. And it goes across the horizontal coil. So, you know, one leg ends up going over here to this capacitor on this side and all that. So I'll bet you that if we actually install this capacitor across D18 like it's supposed to be, I'll bet you somebody removed this over at some point in the past doing work on this chassis. Somebody removed this not knowing what it is. It happens quite often, and I need to put it back in there. There's no evidence of that, but it doesn't necessarily mean anything. So we'll put this back in circuit here and we'll just see what it does. I'm going to leave this C38, the 224 in there, and we'll put this in place here across D18, and we'll do it, let's see, do we want to do it this way? We'll do it this way. So we'll cut this here and we'll cut this one here. All right. Let's zoom in a bit. Okay. Let's get that in there. There's that. Okay, obviously it doesn't matter if it touches, because if you look here, this is all one big, it's all the same pad, same solder trace. So we can actually just leave that like that, that's fine, and nothing over here is touching anything. So we'll be just fine like that. So let's actually fire it up now, see if that does anything. I'll bet our image now is way too wide. It'll be way too wide, I won't be able to adjust it in, and we'll have to put this cap back in. But just for testing purposes, show and tell, let's go ahead and see what adding this capacitor in series, or in parallel, I keep saying that wrong, in parallel with D18 like it should be, if that does anything. Okay, one moment. Alright, once again, anode neck, yoke, ground, video, power, and yeah, anode neck, yoke, ground, video, and power. So I always count. Alright, so here we go. Let's see what we get now. Oh, now that's interesting. My high voltage sound that I was squawking about is much lower. The high voltage was much less of a crackle up. So that deadened the large amount of high voltage that was discharged upon power up. So that's a good sign. And if we look here, oh yeah, it's way too wide. Holy cow. Just like I thought. Wow, holy cow, that is way wide. Holy, let's see. Yep, you're missing so much. You're missing RE. Let's look at this here. We are way too, that affected everything. Each position. And that affected our black level. And if we do, right there is about where it needs to be. Yeah, it's completely, I mean, it's cut off so much. So my theory was absolutely correct. Let's turn our contrast is too high. So now what we'll do is we'll put the original C38 back in, and I'll bet you we'll be golden. So there's an example. That's what happens. Let me put our original C38 back in and see what happens now. Alright, so in the interest of speeding the video up a bit, I didn't show it, but I got the old one out. Or I'm sorry, I got the replacement out, the 224, and put the original one back in. You can clearly see the original one's back in. So let's see what it looks like this time. Alright. Okay, any guesses? Still going to be too wide? Oh, I forgot to hook up video. See, you know, the one time I forgot to count, I forgot something. So that's why it's very important to always count anode, neck, yoke, ground, video, power. And of course, if you have a remote board that you can pull out, that's number 7. But let's see what happens now. And we're still too wide. I may have to go lower. See, let's talk about this for just a moment though. So originally, we didn't have any fold over, if I recall. And if you look here on the side, there's still no squish. It's not squished anymore. And now at least we have the full screen. And now we have tournament features. So yeah, I think what I'll try and do here is I'll try and use the width coil to shrink it a bit. Let's go to our, it may just be stretched too wide. Let's stay. That won't stay. Won't stay. All right. There it goes. Okay, diagnostic test. Monitor patterns. Crosshatch. See, we're very close. We're not squished anymore. So let me see if I can just shrink the image a bit. So I bet you that'll get us where we need to be. We're getting there. Okay, that's as squished as we can make it. Not squished, I'm sorry. That's as narrow as we can make it. If we do horizontal position, I think we're good. I think that'll work. We are no longer squished on the side, and we have our greens. It could go a little bit. I could change the width cap out to from 394 to probably 424 or something. But in all instances, this is how it should be. You can see that now we have a perfect square image. It's no longer squished on the side. So that 1600 volt or 1.6 kilovolt capacitor absolutely fixed our squished side. So this is an example of if you have a squished edge and you move it to the right and it squishes even more, it's either going to be a C38 problem, depending on which version of the chassis you have. If you have a 1986 version, it may just be C38 only because that 1600 volt capacitor is not supposed to be there. Or it's going to be an issue where that capacitor has been removed. I don't know if that's the exact case with this chassis, but you can see that after adding that capacitor in there and putting the original C38 back in, now we have our width and we have our squished image on the side is fixed. So now our squares are all equidistant, no more linearity problem for horizontal, and I think that solved our problem. However, I'm half tempted to put a higher rating C38 in there, but let's look and see how the game actually looks the way that this is now, because we're only, if you look here, we're only, just a hair away from, and then this side, we're just a hair away from. So I think this will probably be good. I'm going to call this good. But if this was your chassis and you wanted to be able to have a little bit more width control, you could change out the C38 from 394 to 424 or whatever, and that would make it come in a little bit. But I think this will be good for what it is. Let's go down, and we'll have to check the game because, okay, black control. Colors need adjusted, but I'm not going to deal with that for now. Yeah, it is too wide because you should be able to see if we do this, you can see the gray border on top and bottom. You should see the gray border on the sides as well. But like I say, if I just barely move it, there's the gray and there's the gray. So I think right about there, yeah, it's too green. Yeah, I'm going to put in a different C38. Let's turn our green down just slightly. There we go, that's good. That looks pretty darn good there. Alright, well, regardless of colors, let me swap out the C38 one more time to, let's say, something in the low 400s, just to get that little bit less of width here. So stand by one moment. So the next highest to 394 was 474. So I actually I had to put a 250 volt 474 in. And you can see here that this one was 390 or 0.39, which is 390. Maybe you can. There you go. So I went up to 474, 250 volt 474. So hopefully that combination with that 1600 volt capacitor on the bottom will fix this problem. Now normally you wouldn't have to do this. I think maybe this is still on the way out. But that cap on the bottom was definitely the problem of the squished side. So let's see what we get now. You all ready? Okay. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, and that cap also very lowered that high voltage static quite considerably. That is perfect. I think we are good to go, guys. Let's let this go through its deal here. Contrast is definitely too high. Bring that down. Yep, if we do H position, if you notice here, when I move to the right, it doesn't squish anymore. You see here, H position, no longer squishes. It moves to the right just perfectly, no squishing. And we have our, it didn't help too much, but at least, I think this is good. I think I'll leave it right here. Because as you can see, we do have our gray on each side. Right about, let's see, there. Vertical position. Roughly there. I'll say that that is good. I would be happy with that. If this was mine, I would be happy with where that is right there. I mean, I could go up, I could go higher to like a 500 or a 600 UF, but I think this will work for what it is. Man, that contrast is way too high. Contrast, brightness, raster lines, no raster lines, brightness, contrast. And a little bit of focus. Oh man, that is good. So there you go. I think that'll be perfect for this owner, and I think you'll be happy with that. I would be happy if this was mine. I'd say that's pretty much perfect. So yeah, if you have an issue like this where you move the image to the right and it gets squished, you've either got a C38 problem if you have an early version without needing that 1600 volt capacitor, or that 1600 volt capacitor is missing. So either way, this is a learning experience. If you have an issue like this, this should fix your problem. You can get those capacitors, the 1600 volt capacitors, you can get those from Arcade Parts and Repair from Peter. It's a great shop, great guy. And hopefully you learned something. And if not, if you already knew this, hey, you're one step ahead. If you didn't, hopefully it helps you out. So use this as a reference if you ever have the squished image on the side. And I appreciate you watching. Like, share, and subscribe if you want. And we'll see you on the next repair.